If Spurge is taking over your lawn, spreading across your patio, or even pushing up through the cracks in your driveway, you need to act on it right now, because it is genuinely one of the most aggressive summer weeds we deal with in the landscape industry. My name is Lenny, and 2 summers ago I had Spurge coming up through almost every single crack across my driveway, along with a spreading patch in the back corner of my Bermuda that doubled in size by the end of July. This year, the Spurge did not dare come up anywhere on my property, and the entire program I used to get there cost me less than a few bucks. In this video, I am going to walk you through several different removal methods that actually work depending on where your Spurge is growing. And even more importantly, I am going to show you the one preventative step that keeps Spurge from ever showing back up in your yard again the following spring. Now, before we get into a single removal method, the first step is to actually understand what you're up against. Because if you don't understand this one thing, this will be a perpetual battle that you deal with year after year. Spurge does a lot more than just spread. It self-seeds, and it does it very aggressively. A single healthy Spurge plant can produce thousands of seeds in one growing season, and those seeds can sit dormant in your soil for years, patiently waiting for the right combination of soil temperature and moisture to wake them up. So even if you went out into your yard today and pulled every single visible Spurge plant you could find, there is a very good chance there is a large seed bank sitting under your feet that is going to germinate the second the soil warms up next spring. The real question you should be asking is how to keep the next generation of seeds from ever germinating in the first place. The single biggest mistake I see homeowners make with Spurge is that they either mow it down or they take a weed eater to it the moment they spot it. And I want to be honest with you, that is genuinely the worst possible thing you can do. If you get down close to the ground and look at the base of a Spurge plant, right at the tips of those little leaves along the stem, you will see clusters of tiny seeds and flowers already forming in huge numbers. When you run a weed eater over a Spurge patch, all you are doing is flinging those seeds in every direction across your yard. And where you had a small, manageable patch this morning, you now have a full-blown outbreak by next week. I have watched this exact scenario play out on properties over and over again across 25 years in this business, and it is the single most common reason people never seem to get ahead of their Spurge problem. The method you actually use to remove your Spurge depends completely on where it is growing on your property. So let us start with flower beds, because in those areas, the old-fashioned way is genuinely the best way to handle it. You are going to put on a pair of gloves and start pulling, and there are 2 things you have to get right when you do it. The first is the gloves themselves, and I want to be very clear that this part is completely non-negotiable. Spurge produces a milky white sap the moment you break the stem, and some people are allergic to that sap. It can break you out in a real rash, and I would much rather you take the 2 extra seconds to slip on a pair of gloves than find out the hard way which category you happen to fall into. The second thing is the actual pulling technique, and this is where I see almost everyone skip a step. Do not just grab the top of the stem and yank straight up. Follow that stem all the way down to the base of the plant, because Spurge sends out multiple runners in every direction from a single central point. Gather all of those runners into one handful, get a good firm grip right at the crown of the plant, and pull straight up in one smooth motion. Your goal is to bring the taproot up with the rest of the plant. If you leave that taproot sitting in the soil, you have honestly only done about half the job, and that same plant is going to be back within a couple of weeks, right in the same spot you pulled it from. Now, before we move on to driveways and patios, I know that lawn care in general adds up fast, and most folks I talk to are honestly just worn out. Worn out from spending money on fertilizer that never seems to work, and worn out from watching the same weeds come back every single spring. If that sounds like you, this book I wrote is the plan you've been missing. It tells you exactly what to do, what to buy, and when to put it down. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to grab your copy over at fixyourlawnin30days.com. All right, now for Spurge growing in a driveway, a patio, or between the pavers of a walkway, pulling is basically off the table. You might get the top part of the plant to break off in your hand, but the taproot is buried down deep inside the crack where your fingers are never going to reach it. In those situations, my favorite fix is a homemade spray I have been using on my own property for years, and it costs almost nothing to put together. You will need 1 gallon of white vinegar, 1 cup of regular table salt, and 1 tablespoon of standard dish soap. Start by pouring the vinegar into a container and stirring in the cup of salt slowly until it is completely dissolved into the liquid. Once that salt is all the way dissolved, add your tablespoon of dish soap and stir it in gently so it does not foam up too much on you. Pour the finished mixture into a spray bottle, walk out to your driveway or patio, and coat every piece of spurge you can see coming up through those cracks until the leaves are visibly wet. Within a matter of days, you are going to see that spurge shrivel up, turn brown, and die off completely, all the way down into the crack. But be careful. Do not use this mixture anywhere near a plant you actually want to keep alive. That means no spraying it close to your ornamentals, no drift into your flower beds when the wind is blowing, and no spraying it near any grass you want to save. The salt will build up in the soil over time and cause serious long-term damage to plant health in that exact spot, and the vinegar will throw off the pH of your soil for months afterward. This mix is strictly for hardscape areas where nothing is supposed to be growing in the first place, which is exactly why it works so well for driveways, patios, and paver seams. Once spurge gets a foothold in your ornamental turf, whether you are running Bermuda, zoysia, or something similar, it can take over a huge section of your lawn in a really short window. The herbicide I reach for every single time in that situation is called 2,4-D. 2,4-D works by mimicking the natural plant growth hormones inside dicot plants, and spurge happens to fall squarely into the dicot category, so it is an almost perfect chemical match for what we are trying to accomplish. When you are standing in the aisle at the store, looking at the shelf, flip the bottle over and look for 2,4-D listed clearly on the active ingredient panel. If it is not listed on that label, put the bottle right back on the shelf and keep looking, because that one ingredient is the entire test. I will drop a direct link to the exact 2,4-D product I use in the description below the video, and I will also put it on the YouTube shopping tab as well so you can grab it in whichever way is more convenient for you. There is one thing I need to say about using any chemical in your yard, and I honestly cannot stress this enough. Read the label on the bottle before you mix a single drop. That label is going to tell you exactly how many ounces of concentrate you need to mix per gallon of water. It is going to tell you the maximum amount of product you can safely put down per 1,000 square feet of turf grass. And it is going to tell you exactly what personal protective equipment you should be wearing while you spray. Those numbers exist to protect your lawn from chemical burn, and they exist to protect you and your pets from unnecessary exposure. We would hate to damage the very turf you are trying to save, and we would hate even more to cause harm to yourself, your kids, or your dogs, all because of a shortcut on something as simple as reading a label. Take the 2 minutes to read it front to back before you ever fill the sprayer, and you will get a much better result on your lawn while keeping everyone safe in the process. And that finally brings us to the last topic in this video, which is honestly the most important one of the entire program. And that is how we actually break this vicious cycle of pulling up spurge every single summer and watching it march right back into your yard the following spring. The answer is a lot simpler than most people make it out to be, and it comes down to putting down a good pre-emergent every year at the right time. There are several different pre-emergents on the market today, but the one I keep coming back to on my own property has an active ingredient called prodiamine. A pre-emergent does exactly what the name sounds like. It works by stopping the next generation of weed seeds from ever germinating and pushing through the surface of your soil. So this is your prevention step, and it is what interrupts the seed bank cycle we talked about earlier in the video. The reason I love prodiamine specifically over the other options out there is that you can use it on your turf grass, and you can also use it in your flower beds, so you never have to juggle 2 completely different products for 2 different areas of your property. 1 bag of prodiamine handles the whole yard from the driveway to the back fence. The timing on your first application is where this entire plan lives or dies. For me, here in Zone 8A in North Alabama, that first application goes down somewhere in mid-February to early March, depending on how the weather is running that particular year. What you are actually watching for is the exact moment your soil temperature hits about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, because that is the trigger point where dormant spurge seeds start waking up in the ground and preparing to germinate. You might be sitting there wondering how in the world you are supposed to know when your soil temperature actually hits 55 degrees, and there are honestly 2 really easy ways to figure it out. The first is to Google the USDA soil temperature map, zoom in on your specific area, and read the current temperature right off the map for your county. The second method is the one I actually use myself, and this is the $2 tool I promised you at the start of the video. I keep an old meat thermometer out in the garage, the kind most people already have sitting in a kitchen drawer. I stick it straight into the ground at about a 2-inch depth, wait about a minute for the reading to settle, and check the temperature. The moment that thermometer hits 55 degrees, that is my signal to load up the sprayer and get out there. It sounds almost too simple, but it works perfectly every single year. There is one more thing I do with my prodiamine application that most homeowners have never heard about, and it makes a real difference in the length of coverage you get out of a single season. I run what is called a split application. I take half of the recommended product rate, put it out across the yard when soil temperatures first hit that 55-degree mark, and then 6 weeks later I come back out and put down the remaining half of the application. Splitting it up that way gives me a much longer prevention window than a single full rate application would give me on its own. And it also catches those late germinating seeds that would otherwise sneak through in the back half of the summer. A single full rate application starts to lose effectiveness right around the time your late season seeds start waking up, so the split simply keeps a fresh barrier in the soil for the entire critical window. Let me pull all of this together into a clean order of operations for you, because I have thrown a lot of information at you and it helps to have the whole plan sitting in one place. The first thing you do is identify where your spurge is actually growing, because the location tells you which method to reach for. For spurge in your flower beds, the gloves go on, you follow the stem down to the base, and you pull the whole plant with the taproot attached. For spurge coming up in the cracks of your driveway or patio, you mix up that 1 gallon of vinegar with a cup of salt and a tablespoon of dish soap, and you spray it directly on the plants, staying well away from anything green that you want to keep alive. For spurge that has already invaded your turf, you reach for a herbicide with 2,4-D listed clearly on the label, and you follow every direction on that label to the letter. Never take a weed eater or a lawnmower to a spurge patch under any circumstances, because all you are doing is scattering thousands of seeds across the rest of your yard. Then you set up your prevention program with a prodiamine pre-emergent, timing your first application to when soil temperatures hit around 55 degrees Fahrenheit at a 2-inch depth. You run a split application, half the recommended rate up front and half the rate 6 weeks later, and you use the same product across your turf and your flower beds, so you only have to buy 1 bag of prevention for the entire property. You handle what is already growing, and you shut down what is trying to come up, and that combination right there is what finally breaks the cycle for good. The bottom line on all of this is that spurge keeps coming back year after year for most people because they are fighting the plants they can see with their eyes, while they are completely ignoring the thousands of seeds sitting in the soil that they cannot. When you handle both sides of that equation in the same season, you are not just clearing out your spurge for this one summer. You are saving yourself from having to deal with this exact same problem all over again next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. Break the cycle one time the right way, and you honestly do not have to keep breaking it every single spring for the rest of your life. I really hope this video finally helps you get on top of your spurge problem for good. If you have your own method for handling spurge that we did not cover today in this video, drop it down in the comments below, because I genuinely love hearing what has worked for other people out there in their own yards. And I would love to know where your spurge is the worst right now on your property. Is it hiding in your flower beds? Is it coming up through the cracks in your driveway? Is it taking over big sections of your lawn? Or is it doing all 3 of those things at the same time? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Break the cycle this year, and thank you for watching.